Okay, I may avoid this then. This is a bit of a struggle. Okay,
You're
let's go
live
ahead.
now.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this very special session that we are doing with the founder of Plaksha University. I can see on the live chat that a lot of you have joined us from various locations. I would love to hear from people which school you are from, which location you are from. In addition to the good evenings, of course, which is wonderful to get. So as you introduce yourselves on the chat, let me start by introducing our speaker for the evening. And maybe speaker is the wrong word, because this is actually going to be an interview of Vineet Gupta, and I will be interviewing him, and he will hopefully share a lot of his experience and thoughts with us. So Vineet Gupta, and some of you might have already heard of him. He's a stalwart of the Indian education sector. He's a first generation entrepreneur who has led Jamboree Education, India's largest test preparation company for studying abroad. It has grown to 39 centers across India, Middle East, Singapore, and Nepal. He's also a founder and trustee of Ashoka University and its founding pro vice chancellor. He is also the education co-chair at ASOCHAM, and today he is with us as founder and trustee of Plaksha University, a very interesting initiative in engineering education. And for those of you who have not joined too many of our webinars, I'm Ramya Venkataraman, founder and CEO of CENTA, and will be interviewing Vineet today. So Vineet, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Ramya, for inviting me. Delighted to be here.
Great. And I can see very quickly from the chat that we have people from a lot of different places: Gajapati in Orissa, Patna, Hyderabad, Bhilwara in Rajasthan, Gurgaon, rowing in Arunachal Pradesh, Delhi. So I can see, I'm not reading all the locations, but I can see people from a very wide number of locations across the country. Wonderful to have you here from Bangalore, from Cochin, Chandigarh, Pune. We also have a few people joining us from outside India, from Philippines, and so on. So welcome to you as well. And glad to have you here. So the topic for today's webinar, as you know, is high quality engineering education, and what does it really take to have high quality engineering education. And before we go into the topic itself, I want to ask Vineet to share a little bit with us about his own journey as an engineer by background, and subsequently, of course, many other things, but a little bit about your career path, Vineet, and what led up to the founding of Plaksha University.
Thanks, Ramya. So I graduated from IIT Delhi in 1991. So maybe I'll start there. I'm a mechanical engineer by undergraduate education. I had three choices at that point: to go abroad and study, or to take up a job in India, or to become an entrepreneur. And I chose to become an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur was very brick and mortar at that time. And subsequently, I built three companies in packaging, pharmaceutical, education. We've divested two. So I only currently own and run Jamboree, which you already described as a test prep company. I've loved that work because it's a for-profit business, but we are making a difference to people's lives when we send them abroad and they do well and they make a career. Somewhere in 2006, I used to watch these students go abroad. Students scoring 95, 96%, getting into top US universities because they are extremely bright, but struggling to find a place in an Indian college, sadly. Our cutoffs have moved to 98, 99, and some of them would end up in evening college, and after 3 years discover they've really not got an education. So I started to wonder and that led me to really getting deeper into our higher education system, What are our challenges? Clearly, one is challenge of capacity. We still have only 1 in 4 students being able to go to college. Most of the West is 70%, 80%. China is 51%. We were both around 8% at the turn of the century. So clearly, India needs many more high quality institutions. A lot of our high quality institutions have come in the public sector, IITs, IIMs, some of our top universities. The private sector has not done enough. And a lot of our private education continues to be suspect, and there are questions. So that, in a nutshell, that desire and passion led to the founding of Ashoka University as a liberal arts university. Some of us came together and we said, look, how do you create a top quality private university? We decided it has to be collective, it has to be fully philanthropic. The choice of people is extremely important. So I think some of those institution building principles got created early on. And that really has been extremely inspiring. I believe that creating an institution is far more satisfying and empowering than building any company. That's what I feel. Institutions last centuries and make a deeper impact. Then in 2016, a group started to come together. This group was really college friends from IIT Delhi. And, we all had the pleasure of receiving a top quality education. But we also, over 25 years, have been recruiting engineers, recruiting people. And we felt engineering education fundamentally needs change. Uh, so that was the first motivation to really start Plaksha. We felt we needed a new model of engineering education. Technology today is impacting everything. Whether you look at biosciences, whether you look at economics, other than the conventional engineering disciplines which are changing. So we felt that Plaksha should create a new 21st century university, which is rooted in technology, but it pretty much shapes everything else around us. And then that journey to build Plaksha started. We were 5 people when we started. That mission has grown. Plaksha today has 80 plus large donors, a lot of corporate support. It's collective philanthropy. It's a large trust. And we have the support of academia from all over the world and from India. So we've been on this journey for almost 5 years now. And this year, our campus is opening up in Mohali, which is near Chandigarh. It's a tri-city. As some of you know, Chandigarh, Mohali, Panchkula, pretty much like Delhi, Noida, Gurgaon. We open this October with our first undergraduate class. We also started some high quality master's programs in the run up, and I'm happy to talk more about it. So that's in a nutshell a little bit about my career. So while I'm an engineer by undergraduate training, but I should admit that when I did my entrepreneurial career, I brought a lot of engineering principles to building our companies. But building the universities has been more, it's been a combination of everything. Analytics, developing your people ability, getting people together, execution. So, and I'm happy to chat more about this in our conversation.
Great, great. So I knew, Vineet, that we do share an alma mater, IIT Delhi, but I did not know that we also share our department. So I'm also from the mechanical engineering
Wonderful.
department, 97 batch, 6 years after you. So.
Okay.
So anyway, so great to hear about your journey, and coming to today's main topic, which is high quality engineering education. What, according to you, are some of the elements of high quality engineering education? Like, how do you define that, and how does that relate to what workplaces of the future and of today's world may be looking for from engineers?
So four things essentially. I think the first is the current disciplines of engineering. You and I did mechanical engineering, chemical, civil. They are all built on the chases of World War II, right? The dictionary definition of engineering is the application of science to solve real problems, right? That's the dictionary definition. Now, problems 100 years ago were different, right? And those problems led to the birth of the engineering disciplines that we continue to see. Mechanical, civil, electrical, those disciplines haven't changed. But the problems today have changed fundamentally. Uh, you know, Look at COVID, for example. While it's a biological sciences issue, but equally, predictions on when COVID will start or end are more in mathematical models and data science. Development of vaccines is a pharmaceutical issue. So equally, look at drones, for example. The drones technology are a combination of what traditionally would be mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and computer science, right? So applications and problems around us have changed fundamentally. And this means our engineering disciplines need to change. And this is a recognition the world over. You go and speak to people at MIT, Stanford, IITs, they will all agree. Why are they not changing? Because they have steep departments existing. MIT has 120 people in electrical engineering. Now, what do you do with them, right? So, first issue is engineering disciplines need to reinvent with the changing reality. Plaksha, for example, is doing a degree in robotics and cyber physical systems. Every system, every piece of machine around us today has a cyber piece to it, and it has a physical piece to it, right? So you need an engineering which can teach you both, hence an engineering in cyber physical systems. We are doing a 4-year program in biological systems engineering, which really combines biology, data science, and engineering. Again, applications around us need that. We are doing a degree in data science, economics, and computer science. Again, fundamentally, the world of business and economics is changing with technology. But and our graduates either are graduating with a technology degree or an economics degree, so who will graduate? People who have an understanding of both. And not to mention computer science, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So the first point is engineering education and disciplines need change, and fundamentally and very quickly. You have all these reports on how many engineers in India are underemployed or not employable. While the world needs more technology people, right? So the problem clearly is what they are being taught. The second is that engineers today also need, if engineers have to solve for society, if they have to solve for the world, then they also need to understand society better. Engineers have been poor at that. They're very good at their codes, they're very good with their formulae, but they often don't develop a deeper understanding of society. So integrating engineering education with liberal arts, design, and entrepreneurship. Design, really are trying to understand how do you design for the person who will use that solution. So getting those concepts in. Third, Ramya, and you would remember, when we were studying, most of our engineering education in the IITs was very theoretical. We went around the 4 years hardly doing any, we did some projects, but so make engineering education more practical, project oriented, get people to build while they're in college. And the last, fourth, which I think is applicable to all education, college education has kept away from developing attitude, mindset, behavior, collaboration. And these are the things you need most when you go out of college. Your disciplinary knowledge helps you, but the way you develop your mindset, attitude, work ethic, and now there is a lot of research to show that these can be developed. So a Plaksha education brings what we call the fourth bucket, self and leadership. So we bring that right up and center. So these, I think, are the elements of what I believe is a truly outstanding engineering education. What Plaksha, that's the model we are bringing in. Of course, excellence has to be backed by the right people. Institutions are really about people more than buildings. So this is all on the backbone of great faculty and great people who lead the institution.
Sure, sure. No, that's very well put, Vineet. And to recap for our audience, as I understand, you're talking about four things: integration across disciplines, a deeper understanding of society, more focus on practical application, and some of the softer elements of collaboration, interpersonal skills, attitudes, etc., being integrated with education. Now, some of what you said in some ways actually applies even at the secondary and senior secondary levels, and for that matter, sometime to some extent even before that. Now, when a student is, let's say, in 9th standard, 10th standard, looking at and is convinced that yes, I want to do engineering and I want to do it in, let's say, a place like Plaksha or an equally integrated program, then are there things that you think students in secondary and senior secondary should already be doing or thinking about? And are there takeaways from your work for principals and teachers in our audience who are from the secondary, senior secondary area?
No, that's a great question, Ramya. And I would say that first is, I mean, going back to the basics, engineering is the application of science. So whoever is thinking about engineering education should be interested in sciences, right? Whether you're interested in mathematics or physics or biology, but some interest in any of the sciences is fundamental, right? Because that really is the backbone. Now, assuming you have that, and I think mathematics today is becoming core. Math is really becoming core to every engineering discipline, even the biosciences to some extent. So students should explore if they have an interest there. That I think is a starting point. The second, how do you then nurture that interest? The second thing would be then inculcating what I call the tinkering mindset, right? So doing some projects, and there are lots of opportunities. In fact, Plaksha is running some high quality summer school programs. We run a summer program for 15 days in June, where we teach 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders to build a small robot, to build an ECG machine, inspiring lectures. So, and we are amazed how quickly students lap this up. And we have a mission to take this program to every school in the country. We are training a cadre of people. Our faculty are, of course, very experienced, but we are training a cadre of teaching assistants now who can take these tinkering workshops to schools, right? And unfortunately, I must say, the rat race to prepare for the joint entrance exam has killed that tinkering mindset, because all you are doing is just one second. So, because all you are doing is you really being in the classroom, solving problems all the time. So that the ability, in your formative years, grades 9, 10, 11, that tinkering goes away. So high school teachers, if you are able to find, there are many organizations who do that now. Finding organizations who can organize these small boot camps, 7 days, 15 days, encourage your students to develop the tinkering mindset. I think that would be my second thing. And the third thing, again, there is today a plethora of stuff available on the web, right? Even if you don't have access on Coursera, on edX, there are just a variety of courses available, which are outstanding. I mean, there's just great content available. So if you think you have that interest, then, internet is your world. You can, of course, I still am a big fan on project-based learning. You still want it in person. But if you're not getting that access, the internet can be your medium. So I think those three, a fundamental interest in the sciences, inculcate the tinkering mindset, and really, if access is an issue, go to the internet. There is lots available there. And we are happy to, really work with school teachers and leaders. And maybe, Ramya, that's a separate conversation we should have on really taking this education to the schools, because that's a big mission. Plaksha is a movement. It's not just opening a university, but it's a movement to inculcate the scientific and engineering mindset in students.
No, that's wonderful, Vineet. In fact, as you were speaking, it struck me that it could be quite interesting if there are teachers who and schools which are interested in figuring out how to bring in this tinkering for their secondary or senior secondary or even middle school students. I'm sure we can collaborate and see how to bring that in. And once again, I see a lot of people having joined in the last 5-10 minutes. So those who've joined in the last few minutes, welcome again. And this is an interview with Vineet Gupta, one of the founders of Plaksha University, and also a very seasoned educationist and entrepreneur. And while we are focusing quite heavily on the quality of engineering in India, what would it take for that to be at a completely different level, etc. I think for those of you who are joining us from Philippines, Nigeria, Qatar, a number of people I see from other locations, I think equally relevant in many of those countries as well when we talk about engineering education of the future. So Vineet, let me take one question from Aditi Pasaya, who's with us in the audience. And it's a very interesting question because you spoke about some of your integrated degrees, and none of them sounded like any of the branches that we saw in engineering. So, is there a need to restructure these disciplines completely, or is there a way to uh, take a mechanical engineering and modify it to a certain extent, or an and let me ask the question slightly differently: why did you choose to go down the path of complete restructuring versus some modification, and do you think it in any way creates confusion, or are you able to communicate that sufficiently to the prospective audience?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Ramya. So we've I believe the biggest innovation happens when you disrupt totally and you build ground up. When you try to tinker on the edges, then you only get a jugaad, what I call a jugaad, right? So we really started ground up. And I'm not an engineering educator, I'm an institution builder. This curriculum has been, our advisory board has 5 deans of top engineering institutions in the US: UC Berkeley, UPenn, Virginia Tech, USC. We have former directors from the IITs, Indian Institute of Science. This, they have been on this for the last 18 months. It's been a total ground up approach, really starting from scratch. There have been umpteen discussions. And I can tell you today, when we are showcasing these majors to the world at large and to the academia, they are excited. They are saying, we wish we can start these in our own institutions. So my belief is that a version of this is already happening outside. It's already happening even in India. If you see the newer IITs, IIT Hyderabad, you look at, or you look at IIT Gandhinagar, you look at some of the newer triple ITs, you'll find some of the semblances of what we are doing, right? Because people who are starting new have that freedom to start from a clean slate. Existing institutions, no matter how much the leadership wants, and academia in particular is very difficult to change, because it all goes through faculty senates, faculty voting. So I believe that any high quality engineering education today, any institution that gets set up today, there is no other chance. I don't think there is an option. The robotics and cyber physical, the industry is crying. India has 8,000 robotics engineers compared to China, which is 200,000. When we go and ask people in the industry, they say we don't know where to hire from. People at the intersection of biosciences, technology, the industry is crying. So we are training a cadre of people today with our conventional disciplines for whom jobs don't exist, or there are few opportunities. So this has to happen. It is a matter of time. Different institutions will take different approaches. Time will tell whether ours was the right one, but all I can say is we have put in a lot of thought. This is not whimsical disruption for the sake of disruption, but it's really thinking ground up, and we picked these 4 areas. We believe a lot of advances, for example, in the 21st century will be bio-related. Just like the latter part of the 20th century was IT and computer science, a lot of the 21st century will be bio, with the genome sequencing, with, the CRISPR technologies now, bioengineering and data science will just change the world fundamentally. what we eat, what we wear, everything will get changed. And India is well positioned. We have great scientists, we have great human capital, and we need degrees like this. I think businesses are crying for digital transformation. If we talk to any CEO, and they are saying, banks are saying we are more a technology company than we are a bank, right? So they need people at the intersection of business and technology, or economics and technology. And it's a matter of time that these degrees come up in various shapes. And AICT, by the way, I don't know if you've seen the latest AICT notification. It's all there. I should really credit them. One often thinks the government is not, but you look at the new degrees AICT is taken out. It's all, we thought we've sort of copied from each other, but it's all there. So they are thinking like that. It's already there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, Vineet, and I quite relate to what you said about building ground up rather than tinkering on the edges, because and I would say that with respect to teachers, we have taken a very similar approach by defining the CENTA standards as a teacher competency framework in a completely ground up manner, and elements like integration across disciplines, elements like focus on design thinking, focus on elements of collaboration, interpersonal skills, etc. Those are things that are integral to the CENTA standards. So I can quite relate to what you said, that taking an existing syllabus and making minor changes would not would not work. And the same goes for teacher competencies when we look at them. And since you're talking about biology, I want to bring in Ruby Oja's question, which is, what are avenues that you see in the future for biology, and possibly at the intersection of biology and computer science?
Yeah, actually many. This whole space, for example, it's happening less in India, but the entire, a lot of you may have heard that in the United States now, you can pretty much synthesize food, right? And very healthy food. So at the intersection of bio and genome sequencing, you can create new food. So India may have a whole, that's one opportunity. You can create new materials. What you wear can be biosynthesized, right? So the whole apparel industry could transform, right? Healthcare, of course, and again at the intersection, I don't know if some of you heard of this company called Cure AI, right? It's a new healthcare startup. And and I'm relating this to COVID, when the whole COVID crisis happened, the normal way to get yourself tested is, you of course take the RT-PCR test, or you get your lung scan, and then you show your lungs to a doctor. Now here, their lung scans were being evaluated by an AI engine, and they were predicting COVID to 98% accuracy, right? Now within an hour, you send your lung scan to Cure AI, you'll get a solution. You'll know in an hour. No human intervention, nothing, right? Telemedicine, we don't have doctors in our remotest parts. Using artificial intelligence, 80-90% of the cures and radiology. So it's just endless. It's just endless. We're working with the Indian Institute of Science on a digital health initiative precisely on all of these areas. So at the intersection of bio, artificial intelligence, computer science, there is going to be a lot happening. There's going to be lots happening in these sort of things that I spoke of.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, that should be
medical devices. I can keep going on and on. Medical devices.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely, and I think that should be very encouraging for some of you who seem to be joining from the biology side here. I'm seeing a couple of questions from Daisy and others with respect to building language proficiency in secondary and senior secondary. I'm going to avoid going deep into that today, and we actually are doing a session on this topic on August 11th, and that's a session in partnership with CBSE. I don't know if you're a CBSE teacher, but we are doing a session, and I'm sure we'll do other sessions with respect to building language proficiency, which also brings me to Parthiban's comment that, just like you said, the AICTE has already started thinking about integration across disciplines and so on. I think we are seeing a similar phenomenon on the school education side, with CBSE starting to think about that integration. So, for example, in the current collaboration that we are working on, the language session on August 11th, there is a deliberate invitation to science and maths teachers to see how they can use it. So yes, that thought process of how do you integrate across disciplines is something that multiple government entities are starting to think about, and glad to see that. At the same time, I think, as Vineet said, there are some natural advantages that an independent private entity like Plaksha has in terms of just jump-starting the implementation. And I think that's what makes it very exciting as a role model for the country. Let me come to Vaishali's question. And this is and while Vaishali, you are asking about the methodology of teaching engineering subjects, which is something that Vineet has already spoken about in some detail. And in case you missed it, you can absolutely refer to the recording. But I'm going to extend Vaishali's question to ask you, Vineet, which is, are there any initiatives being taken by Plaksha to share this methodology with other institutes or universities or schools, in terms of how teachers can teach differently and bring in your principles of integration, practical application, connection with society?
Yeah. So that's Ramya, definitely a big mission and on the cards. But in terms of just execution sequencing, probably it will have to follow the launch of the institution. After we establish the model. We are already doing it, as I mentioned, to some extent through our summer programs. But we would actually love to do this. It's a big mission for our founders. We would like to take this work to 10, 20,000 schools. And, we are looking at organizations. We're happy to talk to you on this and take your guidance, because, you work a lot with schools. So training really and I've been in touch with other organizations who have a similar mission. So it's definitely high on our priority. We want to do it, and we'll do it sooner than later, but perhaps not in the next 6 months or 1 year, is my sense. Let's open the institution, establish, and maybe sometime in 2022, we will reach out and to as many schools who are interested and excited.
Wonderful, wonderful. I see a comment from Jaya Sharma saying we are integrating science and maths with languages and social studies. I see another comment about somebody who runs tinkering labs. Please feel free to share on the chat more about what you do, because just like we are learning from Vineet today, there is rich experience in the audience, and I'm sure you can all learn from each other as well. So please feel free, Jaya and others, to add a bit more about what you do. Let me come to my next question, Vineet, and this is a very kind of practical reality kind of question, which is, if I'm a 9th standard student and I'm trying to decide, and I know that, okay, I would like to get into engineering. You already gave some guidance on what are some of the things which will tell me that, yes, engineering might be a good thing for me to look at. And now I'm trying to decide which institute should I be targeting, 9th or 11th, depending on, each of us started at different points. I'm sure nowadays people start in 9th or even earlier, I believe. So how should I think about which institute to target? How should I go about it? Also considering that the criteria tend to be quite different, and how should teachers in particular guide their students on this topic?
No, I think again a great question, Ramya. But what tends to happen is in India, India has a rich history of engineering education, and the IITs have really been the gold standard, and they've put the vision right up and center. So it's natural that they, for every engineering aspirant in India, they start by looking at that now, which is a fair aspiration to have. And to be fair, IITs are doing a great job. I do feel though that on curriculum, on contemporary curriculum, etc., lots needs to change in our top institutions, and I think there's great recognition. We will see some of that happening. So anyway, the answer to your question, there are going to be some natural brand names will students will aspire to. So I'm not going there. If you are making a qualitative choice for an institution, then first I would look at curriculum and faculty. Right? Really look at curriculum which is relevant today. I mean, I sincerely believe like civil engineering is extremely relevant, but maybe a degree in building technologies, right? Which combines even sustainability along with it. And I'm just taking these as examples. We toyed with 10 degrees to start with across, but we started with only 4, and eventually more will follow. But look at engineering disciplines which are going to be relevant 4 years, 5 years from now, right? Otherwise, you are going to graduate as a mechanical engineer and do a coding job, which is what is happening with 80% of our engineers, right? Then if you want to do a coding job, might as well then learn computer science somewhere, right? So I think look at the discipline very carefully. When you and I went to college, and it still happens, your rank pretty much decided your discipline, not your interest. uh, you know which was unfortunate, and let that not happen. Let your interest. So in Plaksha, for example, you can come in undecided with your engineering discipline. We have a common curriculum for the first 3 semesters, what we call freshmo. After 3 semesters you decide, and if the entire class decides they want to be computer scientists or biological systems engineering, so be it. We will make that possible. So, but it is important that you take up the disciplines that interest you, not I think in contemporary disciplines there is opportunity everywhere, there are great careers everywhere. So look at the curriculum and the discipline carefully, and then also look at whether the institution has the right faculty to guide you. That would be one. More than buildings, more than campus, curriculum and faculty is top now. I mean, learning is all about curriculum, faculty. That would be my first suggestion, right? uh, and the second would be for colleges, college school principals, etc. There are also strong avenues for, and this is again something we can partner with the, not only just talk about Plaksha, but really talking, because we've really surveyed the landscape on engineering education, on which are Indian institutions which are really doing some cutting edge work. And there are some good ones, by the way, both in government and private. Like, I did talk about IIT Hyderabad, IIT Gandhinagar. There's some other private institutions equally who are, Sastra University down south is again one example. So I think there are some examples, and one can really share our own knowledge about engineering institutions. But if you have to look at curriculum, look at faculty, talk to students who've graduated. Most important thing, if you are going to guide your students to an institution that you don't know much about, talk to students who've already studied there. There is no better reference point than talking to students who've gone to that institution. I think those would be the things I would keep in mind: curriculum, faculty, speaking to students, governance of the institution, etc.
Sure. And a related question from Ken, which is how to motivate students towards choosing more futuristic, high quality program versus only the known more known traditional names. How to motivate, and you gave a few tips for that just now, Vineet. Are there others that come to mind, including, for example, on the employment side? Is there some way to build more awareness at the secondary, senior secondary level on employment requirements?
No, again, Ramya, very good question. I have been surprised that students are understanding this far quickly than parents are. When we take the Plaksha curriculum to people, students lap it up. Students know that this makes sense. Uh, Parents are more cautious and maybe more traditional in their thinking. So students are bringing parents. I was on Plaksha campus yesterday. We had a group of 90 people who had come to visit, and every student was saying, look, I brought my dad, I brought my mom along, why don't you convince them, so students are getting it much more because they are more tuned on, maybe in some sense they are understanding, look, if this is what I want to do. So my sense is eventually people will get it right. It is going to be a difficult journey, it's not going to be easy. It is a lot of education, a lot of guidance. We do a conference. In fact, we should partner with you on that. Last year, we did a virtual conference called Infinity, and we had it went over a week. Every day 4 hours. Outstanding speakers from around the world, people from industry. Let schools come there and see and hear people. We need to forums like these. We are happy to do many of these. We will make this a signature event, and take this understanding and learning and mindsets. Changing mindsets is not easy. It's hard work, but I think it will happen. It will gradually happen. There is no option. I think there is. We
Sure.
need more people qualified with engineering and technology education, and we need them to be qualified to deal with contemporary problems. There is no doubt about that.
Sure. And Vineet, if there are, and I'm just, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, but if there are people in the audience here who would like another session for parents in their networks, like parents of their students, etc., would you be willing to do a similar session with parents of their students?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I would love to do that. And we now have a global community of 200 outstanding. These are professors at MIT, Stanford, IITs, ISC who believe in this mission. We are happy to get that. If we for this infinity, if we target more audience, we are happy to get all of those experts to speak to students, parents. It could be a movement in educating people on disciplines,
Sure.
career.
Sure. So I'm just requesting my colleague who is going to put in the feedback form at the end. Can we please add a question on would you like to be would you like parents of your students to be invited for a similar session? So can we just add a question in the feedback link, and so that we can just get a quick round of votes on that when we close this session. And if we have a sizable number of teachers and principals here who would like their parents to hear directly from Vineet or his colleagues, maybe we can try and enable that. So, so requesting my colleague to add that to the feedback form. So let's move forward from there, Vineet. So one thing, of course, is this whole choice and convincing and so on. Now, given that as a senior secondary student, I'm going to be dealing with multiple pulls and pushes on my time, what does it take in practical terms to prepare and get through, let's say, a university like Plaksha? And of course, in parallel, I'm preparing for other engineering entrances. So, how do I balance all that?
Yeah. So a great question again. So what we decided to do at Plaksha, Ramya, is we decided we are not going to have our own entrance test or anything of that kind, because fortunately the good part in the country is there is one main engineering exam, the IIT, the JEE mains. And so what we do is we have three criteria for admission. One is your academic criteria. For that, we are willing to take your JEE score, or we are just willing to take your school marks, even if you have not written JEE, or if you have written the SAT to go abroad. You can share any of the three, right? And our class is coming from all three. So that's one. So that gives us an indication of your academic ability. Because you have bright students. A lot of them don't have access to coaching, but they do wonderfully well in their classes. So you want to give access to everyone. The second thing we are measuring is what I really call the interest in engineering, interest in technology, the hunger, the tinkering mindset. So we actually interview all our students, and it's an interview plus it's a design challenge. We also give them a design challenge. So we give them a problem and we try to see how they think. So it's a 2 hour long interaction. So we are very invested in the class we are picking. So we are trying to check for really the tinkering mindset, the hunger for engineering education, whether they are truly excited by coming to Plaksha. And third, we are also checking them on their motivation, wanting to come to college, etc. We are very biased to people coming from disadvantaged backgrounds, by the way. Plaksha's big mission, I do want to say, is inclusivity. Almost, and this is got possible because our donors are doing that. Bharti is funding 20 students every year on full scholarship access, and we have many donors. So the vision is that half the students at Plaksha will not pay, right? Almost 20-25% are not going to pay in the first batch. And over time, the vision is to make that almost 50%. So people coming from smaller towns, disadvantaged backgrounds often don't get the opportunity, but really have the merit and hunger. And, we want to pick some of those people. And, so through this 3-tier process, we check and we admit our students. And I can share, we are very excited by the sort of people we are recruiting and selecting. So we chose that, and I think we are quite happy with that process. So it doesn't put more pressure. There's not one more entrance. Equally, if you are not taking the entrance, that's fine too.
Sure. No, that's a very interesting process. That's a very interesting process, and in fact, I'm also just going to take the liberty to ask you if there is a link that we can put on the chat where teachers and parents can know more about this. And it's simple. It's plaksha.org. So yes. So my colleague can put that on the chat. Plaksha.org.
Admissions process, etc. Everything is mentioned there. So
okay. So for people who are asking for more details on that, we won't get into that right now. You can go to plaksha.org and check it out.
I've also put my email, Ramya. If somebody writes to me, I can connect them to the relevant people.
Perfect. So Sharat Khandelwal asks, how should teaching change with this kind of change in course structure, and how do we bring the level of teachers to teach these new courses? And Vineet, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a minute to quickly give a thought on that as something that we are fully focused on. So Sharat, the whole idea is that we want teachers' competencies to be aligned with some of the elements of conceptual understanding of the subject, application of the subject, integration across subjects, and pedagogical methods that enable this. And this is exactly what we try to check for in something like CENTA certification, which of course we are working with about 4 lakh teachers across the country now, and increasingly also starting to work with higher education faculty. So that's sort of our focus in terms of how teaching can enable some of the changes happening in education more broadly. But let me also ask for a quick comment from Vineet on any thoughts on this, either at the school education level or at the higher education level.
Yeah, no, it's a great question and a tough problem, Ramya. You're much closer to it than I am. But, what we are trying to do at Plaksha is really, again, I feel India has great human capital, but we have to invest in training and teaching of the teacher. This has to be like a whole mission, both at the university level and at the school level. Just investing in training of teachers. People will understand, people will get it. So we are doing that at Plaksha for our faculty. We have training programs for them. We have very high quality faculty, but even for them to get in this project-based learning, we do want to make learning joyful. Students should love to be in the classrooms and love to do the projects they are doing. And our faculty are working with people overseas, people from within India, to just devise new curriculum, new ways of learning. A fundamental belief we have is, if learning can be very experiential, that makes a whole difference. If learning, if you experience it, then you never forget, right? Whereas rote learning, you're out of the exam and you forget it after 15 days. But if you experience something, if you build something, if you researched on a problem and then crafted a solution, so a large part of our curriculum is very experiential. And that's what I'll encourage. If schools can bring in project-based learning, etc., and when we design workshops for schools, we can do that. We can devise those kits.
Wonderful, wonderful. And which brings me directly to Ramadurai and Sunali's questions, which are very similar. Which is, are there things you do to help students in secondary and senior secondary with respect to some of these tinkering skills, etc.? And you did mention something about this in the beginning, Vineet, but since everyone may not have been there, it might be helpful if you're able to maybe get into a bit more detail on that.
Yeah, I'm again putting the name here. This is the program name, Young Tech Scholars Program, right? I would encourage people to check it. It's a link to our website. So this is a program that we run for high school students, Young Tech Scholars, right? We've run 4 editions of this. And by the way, we've even run it virtually very well, because we ship the kits to students and then our faculty teaches them over Zoom. And it's amazing how much students are able to lap up. So we are very invested in this, but we want to expand this program. What we want to do is, right now, we were running this program in Gurgaon in a school, in a rented premises, in a boarding school, where students would come and stay for 15 days. And again, very ample scholarships. But as a next step, we want to send our teachers to schools, to different parts of the school. So they go there, maybe they go like 6 weekends, or something like that. So we work with each school to decide what works best for the school, and then the school crafts out, let's say, an hour or 2 hours out of the timetable, and that time our teachers spend with the students, just to give them these projects, create the tinkering mindset. And students have come back very excited, and the amount they have lapped up, really developing this interest for science, engineering. So that's been our approach. We haven't scaled it up. I think we have the toolbox, and we have the approach, and we have a desire, but in sequencing, we've yet not scaled it, but we will. But look at this program, the Young Tech Scholars. Every school I will encourage, have your students apply. Applications open up Jan Feb. Don't worry about the fee. We are very liberal on scholarships. Let them come, let them experience Plaksha for 15 days.
Now that's wonderful, and I think that answers questions by many people about how you support students in understanding this early. And Jane Kotayan, I think you are asking if we can run courses for teachers from 9th to 12th on elements like this, and in fact we already do. So there is a full learning side to CENTA now, where we are doing a series of very short master classes, as well as slightly longer courses on a range of different things. So yes, please do go and explore that. There are also, of course, our continued free webinar workshops for teachers on various competencies. So thanks for that comment. Ranjana Tirth Girikar is asking specifically, Vineet, what are the courses that are being run at Plaksha? And when you talked about the integration across disciplines, you gave examples of a few courses. But concretely, if you had to tell us what courses one would choose from, how would you describe that? And that may be one of the last 2-3 questions we are taking. Sorry, Vineet, you're on mute.
sorry. So at the undergraduate level, we are running 4 degrees: computer science and AI. I put it up. It's a very contemporary version of computer science. The second degree that we run is robotics and cyber physical systems. Uh, so people who are interested in this whole Internet of Things, automation, robotics, uh, this degree is for them. Okay, let me just. And the third one we are running is biological systems engineering. This is again at the intersection of biosciences, engineering, and data science. This was a question that came up earlier. And our website, by the way, has everything. So if you go to our website, you will find all of these details, but still I'm just putting it up. Biological systems. Sorry about that. And the last one we are running again is a very exciting degree. And this is, by the way, even open to people coming from economics and commerce backgrounds. You don't need physics for it. You need math, but you don't need physics. This degree is at the intersection of computer science, economics, and business. So these are the 4 degrees. And as I mentioned, the first year is common. You don't need to worry. You can make up your mind after a year what you want to do out of the 4. And of course, as I mentioned, institutions are all about people. So this is all backed by some top quality. All our faculty names are university partners: Berkeley, Purdue, Virginia Tech, Stanford Research. They are all mentioned. IIT Kanpur, we recently have a partnership. All of those details are mentioned. What our first 3 semester curriculum is, etc. So you can get all the details from the website.
Yeah, no, and I think, and just to quickly recap for the audience, I think there are broadly four streams that Vineet has spoken about: computer science and AI, robotics and cyber physical systems, biological systems engineering, and data science, economics, and business. And when I see a couple of the comments on the chat, and I'm not reading out all the questions or mentioning all the names. To the person who said you are confused about whether to choose computer science or go deeper into AI, I think Vineet is saying you don't even need to choose from any of the streams right now. I mean, you could be going very broad to begin with, and even after you choose computer science and AI is an integrated stream. So I think our whole way of thinking of saying, do I need to choose and become too narrow right in the beginning? I think all that gets freed up when you look at courses like this. At least that's what I'm taking away. And similarly, the person who asked if there is a scope for people from economics background, yes, there seems to be a scope for that as well. So very interesting, Vineet. In fact, I mean, from listening to you, I almost feel like doing engineering all over again. And very, very interesting to hear this. There is a question from Rohan, which you may or may not have a perspective on, but I'll ask it anyway, which is, do you think that homeschooling is a better option rather than being in a reputed institution when you look at the world of the future? And I know this is completely different from the rest of our session, but I'm just putting it out there also because Rohan has persistently asked the question a few times.
Yeah. So I must say that I disagree completely. Right. I think while you don't need to be in a reputed school, but I think being in a school is very important. I think the social interactions, the pandemic has made us realize that schools are much more about the class, much more than being in the classroom. The social fabric you're building, the relationships, the ability to deal with people, friendships, lifelong friendships. How can you live your life without friends? So you have to be in a school. Now, you to do well, you need not be in a great reputed school. You could be just in a good school, you could learn a lot yourself, by the way. That's also possible now. I mentioned the whole world of internet is available to you. But I strongly believe, unless there are deep circumstances that does not allow a child to be in a school, you should be in a school. It is such an important part of your life, because it's much more than the classroom.
Yeah, I think Vineet, I have exactly the same personal view as you for what it's worth, and could not agree more. And of course, on a lighter note, I'm sure parents also need kids to be in school for at least some part of the day. So, yeah, Sanjida Banu, yes, we do provide a lot of training sessions for in-service teachers, and you can see that on the CENTA.org learning section. And with that, yes, and for Mohammed from Philippines, yes, we are doing sessions on lesson planning, and in fact, we are shortly launching a full self-paced course on lesson planning. So you can see some of this on the CENTA website. I won't go into the details of that today, because it's not directly connected to this particular session. I think I've taken quite a few of the questions. I'm sure I've not covered all the questions. It also becomes difficult with the continuous stream of questions and comments that we are getting. But thank you for those who participated actively. Thank you to all of you, and apologies to whoever's question I could not pick up. And a big thank you to Vineet for being with us today. I think many people have already filled the feedback form, and it's almost like an 82% of them who are saying that they would like a similar session for parents from their schools. So we'll separately figure out how to enable that. And for those who haven't filled the feedback form, you can whenever you get a chance. And Vineet, any parting words any parting words of inspiration for teachers and principals who are with us today?
Well, I just feel the next few decades for Indian higher education are exciting, and there is just lots going on. And there are some great initiatives out there. So be in this journey for exploration. Be bold, be bold. Get into the right courses, find the right colleges. I know reputation counts, and you do want to be safe, but be bold, and you will build great careers and great lives. So that's what I'd like to say.
Yeah, and Veda, though I said I'm not taking any more questions, I just want to answer your question directly, which is, does Plaksha consider students from schools which are not well known? And I think it's very clear from today's session, absolutely yes. I think Plaksha is interested in the individual student, and irrespective of where you come from. So I think I have learned enough from the session to
Absolutely.
answer that.
Absolutely. And even if you're homeschooled or whatever, we are absolutely okay.
Yeah. Great. So thank you again, and I think irrespective of whether you are looking at Plaksha or any other engineering option, I hope today's session has given you a sense of what engineering of the future needs to look like. Keeping in mind the world of the future and the workplace of the future. So hopefully that's a good takeaway for teachers and principals who are with us today. And the way you get a record of participation for those who want that is by filling the feedback form, and the record of participation will also reach you. So thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Vineet.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.